People don't realize how many people it takes to get an aircraft off the ground.
As you prepare to take your military retirement, you might want to think about the survivor benefit.
If you're a pilot out there looking and you're already part of these organizations or you don't know about these organizations, start looking at the airlines that are supporting these.
If all of those factors are true and the home that you're buying is squarely within your affordability range, knock yourself out.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
Hey, pilot, welcome to Ready for Pushback. My name is Nick Fialka, and you are joining me today. And I'm so glad that you are here. Today's episode is my first interview with a director of hiring at a regional airline, and that is Tyler Tenbrink from Piedmont Airlines. He was very, very awesome to come on the show, spend some time, gave some really fantastic information. And I wanted to clarify something. He sent me an email. One of the things we talked about were pay rates at Piedmont, and the Piedmont premium pay, he says, I'm reading from this email he said. It says it isn't part of the contract or an LOA as PSA or Envoy, so we're able to extend the money without an agreement or amendment. So they'll continue to honor those pay rates until the foreseeable future. They're doing awesome things. So Tyler is awesome for coming on the show. Really cool. And before we get to Tyler, I'm doing a great segment with Timothy P. Pope, the certified financial planner, who's a big sponsor of the show. I'm very thankful for him. Pilot money, guys, it's always, always, always so important. So many things going on in the world of pilot money. I want you to listen to all the things that Tim has to say because it's really impactful. So you get a two for today. All right. You get Tyler and you get Tim Pope. I hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for listening to the show. If you're watching on YouTube, man, continue to like and subscribe that stuff. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, just write me a review. It would be so awesome. I can't tell you how much I appreciate all of the feedback that I'm getting from everybody. Those reviews, they help more pilots find me. So if you are looking to help me out because I'm helping you out, that's how you can do it. It's a little thing. It's cheesy. It's short and sweet and awesome. And I appreciate you. You're the best. I hope you enjoy the show. Sit back, relax. Let's get ready for Pushback.
Hey, pilot. Did you just get a new conditional job offer? Are you getting out of the military and going to move your family across the country? Are you going to move in base somewhere, or are you going to go out to find that second home that you've been looking for? Well, I want you to stop right now, pick up the phone, and call Marty and the team at Trident Home Loans. It's an organization that's run by pilots. They understand pilot pay. They understand contracts. They understand military. They have the best VA loans in the United States. Marty and his team have been doing mortgages for years. They've been doing my mortgages for years. I trust him and his team more than any other organization. I challenge you to get a better deal anywhere else. Go ahead, reach out, get a mortgage quote, and then call Marty and his team. They will walk you through the process and show you how competitive their rates are. So go right now, TridentHomeLoans.com, and check them out. Timothy P. Pope is a certified financial planner dedicated to guiding professional pilots through smart financial planning. Whether it's saving for retirement, investment management, a seamless military transition, or strategic tax planning, Tim is your trusted financial partner. Also, you can join Tim as he leads engaging discussions on personal finance and strategies for professional pilots on the brand new Pilot Money Podcast. Timothy P. Pope, helping professional pilots make the most out of life. Hey, pilot. Does your pilot uniform make a short flight feel like a transcon slog? Flight Uniforms have reinvented aviation shirts with 3D stretch, stain repellents, and no wrinkles. These shirts are just plain comfortable and ready for takeoff right out of your rollerboard. Flight Uniform is trusted by more than 25,000 pilots, and their flagship Flight shirt has over 1,500 five-star reviews. I've worn every pilot shirt out there, and if you know me, you know I only wear Flight Uniforms. Be the envy of every cockpit at flightuniform.com and get a special podcast exclusive discount with the code SpitfirePod20 to take 20% off your first order at flightuniform.com. All right, everybody. This is Timothy P. Pope, Certified Financial Planner. He is with me today, as he is many times during the year. I like to spend some time with Tim throughout the year to talk about finances and what pilots should be thinking. And today we are talking about the military side of the house and people that are leaving the military, whether you're retiring or whether you are going to go ahead and pull chocks early and get to the airlines and pursue that dream. And so, Tim, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to have you back, my man.
Nick, glad to be back. Always good to see you and talk to you. And by the way, congratulations on a Rockstar 2023, over 100 episodes in 1 year. That's incredible.
Yeah, man. What a year. Hundreds of thousands of people listening to this show. And I'm thankful for every single pilot that does. And you are now internet famous too, because not only are you the guest on just about every pilot podcast in the sphere, but now you have the Pilot Money podcast. Talk to me about the Pilot Money podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thanks for that. So Pilot Money Podcast, we just launched in January, and it's specific, as the name suggests, and it focuses on all things financial planning for the professional pilot. Right. So you guys do have unique careers. You have unique earning potentials. Your contracts are unique to your airline, right? And so your benefits. And it's great because you've got this smorgasbord of, hey, I've got good income plus benefits as well. What does this mean for me and my family? And that's what the Pilot Money podcast does, is help you to ask yourself the right questions to say, hey, what does this mean for me?
Yeah, that's so good. It is so good. And it's one of the, you have this toolbox of things. You need to get yourself a headset. You need to get your bag together. But you also need to get your financial life in order. And that's one of the things that's easy to overlook because it's a little bit of a blur when you are just diving into something that is new, and all of a sudden they're paying you for it, and it's totally brand new, and especially for the military folks, right? So, what are you seeing? What are the things that people are thinking about and maybe succeeding in or not succeeding in when it comes to leaving the military?
Yeah. So good question there. And I think maybe I will start with just kind of a lot of patterns that I see with guys going through military transition. When you think about flying in the military, we're always comparing ourselves to somebody else or something else, right? And so, obviously when you fly in the military, your paycheck, right, you're going to be making less than the guys and the girls on the commercial side of the house. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is you're likely going to have moved a lot. So what that means is if you're married, your spouse have chosen to work less to support the family and your career as you guys move from place to place, or maybe they're not working at all. So, you're feeding a family a lot of times on one income, and you're also saving for retirement on one income. And then you're very cognizant of the fact that, hey, you know what? If I was at the airlines, I might be making more, right? So all of that rolls together. And so then guys are coming out thinking or feeling like, hey, I'm really behind. I'm really behind on the 8 ball when it comes to, establishing my family financially or saving for retirement. And the one thing that I'd say is, hey, if you were retiring after 20 years of service, active, you're going to get the military retirement. like the pension, so we can calm down. It's going to be okay, right? So you've got military retirement. You probably have some VA income because of a disability rating. In the future, you can look forward to Social Security as well. So when as a planner, I look at all these things, I'm saying to myself, okay, these are guaranteed income streams. And when we think about retirement planning, that's what it's all about. The reason that you're saving so much in your 401k or your Roth IRA, or you're happy about, your 17% non-elective contribution. The reason that we do all those things is that when you stop earning income, we can turn that into an income stream for you. So your military pension, your VA income, your Social Security all add up to be guaranteed sources of income. And so you may need less in your retirement accounts in order to be okay. So, you asked, so I'm going to pause because I don't want to come back to that question about, what am I seeing in terms of, folks being successful or not being successful. Let me just pause there. Any questions on that?
Yeah. I also think about so when I started in 2001, one of the things that was brand new was the Thrift Savings Plan. And we call it TSP. That's and we give acronyms to everything because we're not smart enough to really remember what the real words are. But so Thrift Savings Plan is basically similar to 401k, right? They have these funds, and you can take a portion of your earnings and put them in savings pre-tax, and you get, it's hopefully people have started doing that right when they first jumped in and got into the military, and you elected whatever percentage of your income, and you have just, for the past however many years, just that's been gone. It's been you haven't even noticed it, and your lifestyle is adjusted to that, and you have a solid saving habit that you have had over maybe as little as like 10-ish years, maybe as many as 30 years, and that habit is one of the things everybody always talks to about financial planning. Is you have to build those habits early, and you already have this one established, right? And so the threat, I think, is once you jump to the airline world, whatever professional aviation thing you're going to, you have to reinstall those habits so that you don't feel that bite early, and that you just, it is invisible to you that you are just saving. And so, I don't know. For me, when I got out, I left all my TSP stuff where it was. Do you think people should convert that to 401ks or Roth IRAs, stuff like that? Or do you feel like, that TSP fund is a smart move to keep there in the long term? How do you go about without, all the caveats are like, hey, this isn't financial advice, but what do you have that conversation about?
Yeah. So that's a question we get often is, hey, I've separated from service. What should I do with my TSP? And it's interesting. If you go out on the internet, there's a lot of folks that they love to hate the TSP, right? And there's some advisors that'll tell you hey, let's go ahead. You're leaving, the military. Let's go ahead and roll that TSP over. And I'm here to say not so fast, right? Because, the investment options in the TSP are pretty straightforward. You got the CISF and G fund, right? So those are going to track major market indices. And in my experience, they do it with very little tracking error. And then the costs are low as well. And so for me, that's a really good thing, right? The other investment options that you have is the life cycle funds inside the TSP. And, when I work with clients, we're usually using some of the others, like the ones that I just mentioned, as opposed to the life cycle fund. But if you're doing this on your own, the life cycle fund will do it for you. And, so the reason that I'm not in a big hurry for you to move your TSP over is twofold. One, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Right? Because the TSP can track its benchmarks with very little tracking error. So, and then the other reason that I'm not quick to have folks roll it over is because as a professional pilot, you will get to a point in your career, if you haven't already, where you earn too much money to contribute directly to a Roth. Okay. And the Roth election wasn't available in the TSP before 2012. So like yourself, you started in 2001. So all that money, right, was pre-tax. Now they have Roth, but chances are you've got a little age on it, right? You've got these pre-tax dollars. So if you roll that over to an IRA, you make too much money to contribute directly to a Roth, you are going to slam shut in your face what's called the backdoor Roth strategy. And matter of fact, on the Pilot Money podcast, I just went into a deep dive of, hey, you've earned too much to contribute to a Roth. What should you do now? So for those two reasons, not to slam the backdoor Roth shut, and then also because the investments in the TSP are effective, I'm a fan of the TSP, right? Now, I will say if you are just totally bent on rolling it, you can either roll just the Roth portion, or you can go to a new 401k with your employer, but I wouldn't make a pit stop at an IRA.
Yeah, it's funny. I as an airline captain, right? I have been thinking a lot recently about the proper ways to manage your savings, and you can always find something stupid to spend your money on. But I also have the 5 kids, so I talk with them about the importance of that. And my oldest, Forsadi, we just yesterday in the car had a conversation about, because he's got some index funds and stuff like that that he loves watching. And we went through the S&P and what all, he said, well, what companies do I own? And, we went through and I saw like Alphabet and Meta and all the things. And he said, oh man, this is awesome. Yeah, you get to participate in this big, huge global economy. But the being able, back to my point about being able to find the smartest ways to make your money work for yourself, because that, unlike every other job, the door closes at 65. Like that door is closed, and so you are you're either have chosen wisely, or you have decided that you're going to need another job, probably being a sim instructor or something like that after the airlines say sayonara, whether it's 65 or 67 or 68 or whatever it is. That's it. Should I wait as I'm getting out of the military? There's a lot of things going on, right? About 6 months prior, probably, I don't know, 18 months prior is when they start doing all their VA disability work and all that stuff. There's a lot going on, a lot thinking about a move, thinking about getting ready for an airline interview and this, that, and the other, to get on your calendar. I'm sure it's hard. We actually have talked about how you can't just like, oh, I want to talk to Tim on Tuesday. Like, you got to actually look into the future, because everybody wants to talk to you. So what do you tell the guys and gals getting out?
Yeah. So good question. So I tell them this, look, if you need financial planning and you need help with the transition and then with all the new airline things, there's like a blackout window where you don't want to be talking to me. And so what I tell folks is you want to start our relationship at least 3 months before your transition, or at least 3 months before your class date. That's going to give you time for us to go through the planning process, check the cash flows, project income differences, allow you to spool up, because on day one, they're your election benefits and so on, your union benefits, all these things that as a military aviator is going to be brand new to you, right? So at least 3 months before. If you miss that window, then I tell folks after training, because training is all consuming for you guys, and you don't want to be talking to me and going through all of the financial planning process. In fact, you won't do it. You might start it and then say, hey, we need to hold off. So I just tell folks up front, like, look, come back after training. The few times that we chat with our clients while they're in training is usually like, hey, can you confirm that these benefit elections are correct? And this is what I want to be doing. But then you guys go back to studying. So, okay,
Tim. So with military retirement, and there's a lot of things going on to military retirement, right? Like if you're a reservist and you retire out. You don't join the check of the month club until you turn 60 or somewhere close to there. And but if you do have the active duty retirement, you kind of get it from day one. What are the things that kind of each group should be thinking about there?
Yeah. So I tell you this first, right? So with the military retirement, as we mentioned before, that helps with that retirement income stream. So if you're active duty and you're getting it now, and then you're going to add your 121 job on top of that, that just increases your taxable income at the federal level. There's some states that will not tax the military retirement, and that's absolutely nice. But so if you're getting that, that can be, you can reinvest those dollars, or you can use those dollars to support your lifestyle. And so and then if you're getting a little bit later, so reservists or National Guard, age 60, like you mentioned, it's still a powerful benefit, right? So if you think about, like, for easy math, let's use $5,000 a month is what the retirement is going to be. I like to track a withdrawal rate on a retirement portfolio of about 3.5%, because I know, as your planner, I can sleep at night knowing that I am not concerned at all about you ever running out of money, ever. Okay, at a 3.5% withdrawal rate. So if you're getting $5,000 a month, that's your equivalent of about a $1.7 million portfolio. So, and so, as we were talking about earlier, the reason that we put all this money in the account is so we can create an income stream in retirement, right? So, that can help folks think, hey, I'm behind the 8 ball, but, you add up your military retirement, you add up your VA income, and your Social Security, you've got these 3 streams of income. The other thing that I would tell guys to think about, though, is as you prepare to take your military retirement, you might want to think about the survivor benefit. Okay. Yes, there is a cost to that, but if your financial profile is close or similar to what I described earlier, you moved a lot, your spouse decided to support your career, maybe they worked less or not at all, and took care of the kids, things like that, then it'd be terrible if you had no survivor benefit. And if something happened to you, you predeceased, and then that money just stops, right? And so, you want to be thinking about survivor benefit. And if you don't take it, then get a value on the pension and, do the appropriate life insurance. You're still going to have to pay a premium.
Yeah. That actually lands a little close to home. My grandfather, he worked for General Electric forever, and he received a pension from the company, and he passed away much younger than his wife. And my grandmother, we were able to, she had dementia and all the things, and we were able to support her and find care for her based on that survivor benefit. And that, man, if we didn't have that, man, it just would have been a less, it would be been a lot more things to jump through, a lot more difficulty, like that you wouldn't have to do if you already had it. And I don't want, it's always something that is hard to think about, getting old, dying, all the things, but being able to look past just this dollar value to understand what is best for you and your family, I think that's so important. What about VA disability money, right? Because you get, you can apply for those of you that are early on in this process, when you are looking to get out of the military, you can apply for VA disability benefits. And all of this is based off of kind of how you got beat up in the military and how broken they made you. And some of that, there's some serious cash involved in this that can that's not, and there's also like secondary and tertiary benefits that are just really, really super. So what do you talk to people about with going down the VA path?
Yeah, well, the VA, with your disability rating and that income, I hate that you're beat up, right? I'm thankful for your service. So get those two things out of the way.
Yeah. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your taxes. We appreciate your taxes, Tim.
You know, you're welcome. The other thing though is those benefits are tax free. Okay. And we like that because that tax free money is powerful. And we didn't even talk about the fact that, when you're active and you're serving, you guys usually have entitlements that result in more tax-free income that you're going to get than on the outside, right? So you kind of get whacked a little bit when you come out. But though that VA income is tax-free, and there's a lot of this kind of bleeds into the education. There's some states that if you have a VA disability rating, that will then help out with education for your dependents, right? So there's a lot of strings to pull on the VA disability rating.
Yeah, and you should certainly look at those websites that talk about what states are most advantageous for disabled veterans, because it is, all states are not created equal. And I lived in Texas, which has stupendous benefits for people with a VA rating. And then I moved to Georgia, which you might as it's trash. It's just comparatively. I mean, it's disappointing. It is what it is. I hate to be in some ivory tower, but Georgia's really crappy when it comes to VA disability, and benefits associated with that. And so, if you're going to choose to live somewhere, some people I know choose to commute. Some people live in Florida and commute to other states to fly primarily because of that. And we talk about, Anna and I talk about it all the time, because I have my rating and I am certainly, my other buddies that are in other states are like, oh, what about this? I'm like, no, not here in Georgia, not in Georgia. So that's important. It is not, some states are great. And I'll leave it kind of at that. All right. So the other thing that that they have is GI Bill too, right? Should they burn all their GI Bill on flight training? Should they keep it for their kids? How do you make this decision?
Well, so on flight training, so then that suggests that you're a rotor guy and you need to transition, right?
Or a never guy, a never
guy. That is also very fair. That's a tough one, because your ability to transition and go to the airline, stay healthy and fly the airplane, that is your primary wealth builder. And then eventually your wealth builder will be all of the great decisions and investments that you've made along the way. So when you put it like that, hey, should they burn it on themselves for their own training? I approach that fairly circumspectly because of what I just said. You got to get it. You got to get to where you're going to support your family. Now, let's assume that you've flown fixed wing and you're going to the airlines and you have this GI, then you could choose it to, get a master's for yourself or support your spouse or whatever. I will say that the GI benefit is the post 9/11 GI benefit is extremely valuable, because it looks at paying for 36 months versus a dollar amount. So when we think about the cost of education and how that increases over time, it does something dumb. I hope it changes by the time my 2-year-old is ready to go. So, but the cost of education has been skyrocketing over the last 20 years. So that benefit of 36 months is extremely valuable if you've got some kids to spread that around. Now, if you're like me and Nick, we got more than 1 or 2 kids in tow, right? We're probably still finding ourselves looking at 529 plans or the prepaid state plans. But I bring up, or you brought up, the GI Bill, and I'd say, hey, this is another tool in your toolbox. If you're in the military, you haven't used it yet, and you're thinking about your financial planning, you're thinking about retirement planning. In this case, you're thinking about education planning. This is another valuable tool. Don't go to waste. So
I think I whatever you can pay for to make, yes, I get it about if you are using the GI Bill to make yourself a better asset, you can get a better job because you use your GI Bill, then do it. If you're doing it to just get a master's to have a master's and you're already an airline pilot, I suffer to see the value in that. And so I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying take a broader look at the people that are attached to you and how and especially if there's a bunch of littles that you're going to have to sort out and they all want to go to some school. I look at mine, I'm like, all right, which one of you 5 is not going to be smart? That's the one that's hard with the GI Bill.
That's funny. But yeah, to your point, I mean, I've heard of folks saying like, hey, I got this GI Bill, but we've used it for my spouse to get a master's degree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Well, but I think that goes back to the point that you just made. It's like, is that the best spend of the dollar?
Yeah. Is maybe. It like, yeah, maybe that opportunity for that master's is really going to propel that person to a much better income level. And then it's a no brainer. So I'll get off my weird soapbox and you guys can cast stones at me as you wish. Let's talk about all the great benefits, why you should join the military after you get out and you're already you're disillusioned and you've got your tattoo on your shoulder that shows what you did in the military. One of the greatest things that I think there is the VA home loan. And I love that. And I love Marty Medvey and Trident Home Loans. They've helped me with my VA mortgages, but there's some quirks in there that are really beneficial. Will you talk about that a little bit?
Well, the VA home loan and the 0% down payment.
That's right.
That's huge. That is huge. And now what I ask clients to do is ask themselves, because I love this benefit, right? But I ask themselves like, hey, just because I can do 0%, does it mean I should? And that question has become increasingly more relevant now that mortgage rates have gone up, right? Yeah, if this was 3 or 4 years ago, I'm like, sure, you can do it, right? Because but now that mortgages have gotten more expensive, I want folks to think about going into the next home. So when you have recently transitioned to the military, right? Like we said, you've worked with Nick and his team. You've got your dream job. You're moving in base, and you're also on year 1 pay.
Man,
okay,
that's a tough time.
That's a really tough time. And my thought on the VA home loan is, if all of those factors are true, and the home that you're buying is squarely within your affordability range, knock yourself out. Use the 0%, right? Because it's squarely within your affordability range. However, if that scenario is true and the only way that you can afford that home is with the 0%, then I'm going to say, maybe let's slow down, right? I'm going to want you to put some money down, maybe from a home that you just sold, to give yourself some more wiggle room. Or maybe we're thinking about delaying the home purchase and we're renting for a year or 2. And I know military guy wants to think about that. I talk to them all the time. They've moved all their careers. The spouses are done with moving. They just want to be done. I get that. But, should I stretch myself and throw all my eggs in on one basket on year 1 pay? Or do I wait until year 2, maybe year 3, and get the home that I'm really going to settle in? I'm really, going to be, for me and my family kind of thing. So those are the things I think about when reaching for the 0%.
The less financially burdened you are on year 1 pay, the happier experience is going to be throughout that year. And then, and further on, like living within your means is so important. And I talk about that often. And that year is 365 days long. And it is, every minute of it hurts when you are, financially stressed, and that you don't want to be thinking about that and hoping that the captain picks up dinner. And you flying with me, she certainly is. But
well, there's that. And if you're on year 1 pay, you are not furlough proof. There's things that are outside of your control that could put you in a really tight spot in this industry. And so, just from a risk management perspective.
Also, you could not be successful in training and be looking for another job. I know plenty of people that have been in that situation, and nothing is guaranteed. And you are on probation with that company. Maybe you make a bad Facebook post. Maybe you say something to somebody that rubs them the wrong way, and they can cut you loose. And so you are like, being on probation is a no kidding kind of thing. And that the furloughness of things, you don't want to pull out that furlough flute and hear it singing your song, right? Shout out to Max.
That's right.
But so, yeah, man, that's so important. And I want to circle back because you and I, for those of you watching this on YouTube, you probably saw a weird glitch where we had a conversation and then it kind of switched over. We had a problem with the recording, and we were in this great part of the conversation about what's going on at Southwest right now. And Southwest, most of you probably know, this just happened like a day or two ago when we're recording this, but most of you probably know that they're not hiring this year, and they have rescinded CJOs and they put people in the pool, and 2024 is over for people that were going to Southwest, much like the poor folks that are still in the pool at FedEx, whether they've moved on or haven't moved on. And not just people there, but all like that are waiting, but also people that are on year one pay that all of a sudden they hear the music has stopped and they're going to be at the bottom of the seniority list for this foreseeable future. And so, what do you say to those people?
Wow. So that's news that we're dealing with on our practice right now. It's two pods come to mind immediately. One, had his absent at Southwest, and then you hear this, and it's going to have to. That's actually three come to mind. It's going to have to pivot, right? One's thinking about doing some Part 91 stuff. The other ones we haven't worked through it yet. And I think this just leads back to some of the conversations we were just having about risk management, right? Like, you crawl, you walk, you run kind of thing. And the same thing, if you follow that process financially, I can't guarantee. In my industry, we can't guarantee anything, but I assure you, your rewards will be sweet. And so so if you kind of, understand where you are in your airline career and what that means financially for your family, and then you behave accordingly and make decisions accordingly, leaving yourself lots of wiggle room. When a Southwest stops hiring, you're going to be able to pivot. Is it going to be a speed bump? Yes, but it's not going to be the end of the world, right? And then another one that we were working through, we started in October or September or sometime last year. And he started looking at 3 airlines, applications in, and 2 airlines kind of took care of themselves, Southwest being one. And then that third one is where he's accepted a position. And so, we did all the work on the front end and we built in the contingencies. And I think just like you hear in investing, hey, diversify. I've heard you guys say it on your show, the time where you can just put in one app to your airline of your choice, that's over. You're going to have to put in multiples, and then who calls you is where you're going to pick up the phone, and that's where you're going to interview, right? So
yeah, yes. And I'm sorry if you didn't, if you don't, if you're really hoping to live in Fort Worth and fly out of Love Field, it's probably not going to happen right now. But the financial picture, it'll be okay. Like, this too shall pass. You just be pragmatic, be practical, like come into your family and be, find out the ways, like write your budget, figure out the ways you can cut spending and see where it is. And don't do anything crazy. Don't do anything dramatic. Call Tim, get on the schedule. You need to give him a couple weeks heads up. He can't talk to you today, but he'll talk to you soon. Yeah, Tim, I want to make sure I've covered all the things we need to cover. What are we not talking about?
Well, there's one more And it's Tricare.
Tricare.
And yeah. There's something that you want to think about, particularly if you've done 20 years, right? Like the option, hey, Tricare for life and things like this. And the premiums on Tricare are pretty affordable, and it's treated you well. And so that's one of the questions: hey, should I keep Tricare as I transition out? And it really depends, right? The couple of things that come to mind about what it depends on is, what's your family's healthcare need? What's the healthcare options at your new employer? And then where you live, do they have sufficient service providers that accept Tricare that's going to work for what you need? So those are the things. Now, just know if you elect to keep Tricare, it's going to make you ineligible for things like an HSA. Okay. And that HSA account it's the only account out there that has the triple tax benefit, right? When you put money in, it's tax deductible. As you invest the dollars, it grows tax free. And then when you use it for qualified medical expenses, it comes out of the account tax free. So over a 20-year career, if you have a family, right, and you're putting in $8,300, that could be fairly substantial. Now, the thing is, Tricare, it doesn't cover long-term care. So you talked about, your grandmother having dementia. That's a real thing. My mother-in-law has Alzheimer's and lives with us. It's a real thing, folks.
Yeah.
Tricare doesn't cover that, but your HSA could pay for long-term care policy premiums, right? So it's just something that you want to weigh out of where you are in your career, what your family's needs are, what your healthcare. I mean, if you're at NetJets and your healthcare premium is zero, and you have access to an HSA, it's like, why am I not contributing to that? So, it just weighs it out. And it's really, when we think about personal finance, that's the thing. It's all personal. There's a lot of like ratios and rules of thumb and all of these things, but it's all personal, and it really revolves around you and your family and what your needs are, and to make it all work. So that'd be the last benefit that I'd say is a pocket thing, something in your pocket there as a transitioning military. It's a question we get all the time, and the answer is it depends on a number of things.
I love it, man. I love it. And you're right. Personal finance is so personal, and everybody's got a unique case. So, all right, Tim, I appreciate all this great information. I appreciate everything you've given to the pilot group that you are always contributing to. I hear you on all the podcasts. You're making your rounds in the Aviation Network, and now with the Pilot Money podcast, which is my favorite financial planning podcast. It's just great. I love watching and listening and hearing your cool guests. And spoiler alert, Anna, my bride, and I are on an upcoming episode, so definitely tune into that. You'll hear our terrible financial decisions. And so Pilot Money Podcast, Pilot Money Podcast. Tim, you're awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. I waited 3 years to have Anna on the show, so I was very excited to have that, and your listeners are going to appreciate it. So thanks for having me on, and I appreciate what you are doing for the pilot industry as well.
All right, man. All right, folks. I am sitting with Tyler Tenbrink from Piedmont Airlines. How are you, my man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I appreciate you coming on the show. It's super fun. You are my first director of hiring from a regional that I've ever spoken with. So I am stoked to be on this call with you.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, for sure. For those of you guys watching on YouTube, you can totally see Tyler in his sweet Piedmont shirt. And that's awesome. If you are, please do the like and subscribe thing. I guess that's helpful. So they tell me, my producer keeps hounding me to make sure I say like and subscribe. Smash that button. All that craziness. Tyler, man, tell me about Piedmont Airlines and tell me about yourself. Where did you come from? How did you end up working here?
Gosh, I've been in the airline industry, let's say about 20 years. I am from Kansas and I went to college at K-State Salina, which is now, I think, K-State Polytechnic. I was in their professional pilot program. And of course, during my stint there, I graduated in about 2006, and there were no jobs to be had. So I kind of went in another direction and started on the customer service side while I was in while I was in Salina, I actually worked for Air Midwest, if you can think back that far. So I was throwing bags in college. It was great. I got my foot in the door that way, and then became a station manager in Manhattan, Kansas. I was also in crew scheduling and dispatch. And then I went on to Frontier Airlines and worked in their fuel management department. And then after that, I actually went back to Great Lakes. I'm sorry, I went back to Air Midwest and continued on in their essential air service auditing program. I was a program manager there. So I did a lot of billing to the FAA and just a lot of stats and analysis. And after that, I went to Great Lakes Airlines after the shutdown of Air Midwest and was a station manager there. And then I was in corporate training and then went into what we call IEP auditing, which is was a program manager for their internal evaluation program. And had been there for, I was there for 8 years. And then I got out of the airline industry and moved back to Kansas and went to Garmin and did a lot of their training on the G1000 and a lot of their other avionics, and then product support with them as well. And then also did IOSA 9000 auditing. And then I after that, I decided the airline industry got into my blood, like everybody else says, and went back to it. And then I went to Piedmont, got hired sight unseen in Philadelphia and moved out to Salisbury, Maryland, which is in the middle of nowhere. It's where the company's headquarters is at, and was their safety programs manager. So I managed all of their ASAP, their fatigue, their line-oriented safety audits, and then just all the other safety programs. And then there was a piece in there where everybody started realizing, oh no, we are going to need pilots and we need these programs. And so they tagged me to do it. And I became the manager of pilot recruitment. And the rest is kind of history. I was just the flight side and then took on flight attendants and then went into dispatch and all those other good things. And then all of a sudden I was a director, and that's about the time that COVID hit. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, but I now oversee all of the hiring at Piedmont, which is 10,000 employees. We operate the E145, as you know. We did that transition back in like 2017 to the 145 from the Dash 8. And then I now oversee all of our flight, in-flight, maintenance, corporate, and ground handling recruitment. So I have a team of about 60.
Dang. That's nuts. Are the Salisbury Shorebirds still the minor league baseball team there?
They are. That's funny that you know that.
Listen, I used to work for the Hickory Crawdads way back in the day. So. Oh,
really? That's nice. My little brother is actually he was a major league baseball player, so I know a lot about the minors.
Man, what a racket! Tell you what, it's like I look at it like the regionals, except you get paid way more in the regionals than you do in minor league baseball.
Yeah, at this point, back in the day when I was becoming a pilot, it was $16,000 a year, I think is what a new hire pilot was making. So yeah, it's changed a whole ton.
It's wild. It's wild. Will you talk? Well, we're on the subject, man. Talk to me about kind of those pay scales and where they've come from. I mean, just post COVID, they started all the LOAs. So how did the letters of agreement, for pilot pay, where do you guys sit right now?
So right now our first year FOs are about $103 an hour, and our captains are about $150 an hour, just first year. Take into consideration that a lot of our, direct entry captains are coming from either another 121 or a 135 that qualifies as 121 time. So we count their longevity. So they get to bring over their longevity and they get higher on the pay scale.
Man, listen, I was hired by Envoy in 2017, and I think I was like $38 an hour or something like that. So $103 an hour for a new hire FO, man. That's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. I've, coming out of school with, just this is their first job. They're making close to six figures, if not over it, which is outstanding. I kind of wish I stuck with it, but, things change in life.
Yeah. Hey, man, it's all grow where you plant it, I think. That's it. And I mean, gosh, that's a ton of responsibility for sure. What is the good part about flying for Piedmont? Like, why is it, if you have a choice between you have 3 American Airlines wholly owned, Piedmont, PSA, and Envoy. Why is Piedmont the best?
I have been asked that question a million times in a million different ways. And I keep going back to the culture. And everybody talks about people wanting, it's a family oriented place. It's, I want to be somewhere where my family is taken care of. And I kind of laugh at that because not everybody lacks their family. We're more like a team and we operate like one. The nice thing is I can walk into headquarters and I can walk upstairs and talk to the CEO. His door is always open. Any pilot can do that. It's operated like a small, mom and pop shop. It really is. The people have really made the difference at the carrier. They really care about, the person, not just the number, not how many pilots we have. We work together to get everything done that we need to. And we get called on a lot to pick up things that other air carriers cannot do. And we take it in stride and we make it work. It is something that was instilled with us with our old CEO, which was, what was his name? I just drew a blank. Lyle Hogg. And he came from American Airlines. He came in as a new CEO and really kind of just really understood the people and what we needed to grow. And for a long time there, Piedmont we weren't sure what was going to happen. We have this massive ground handling side that does a lot of the ground handling for American and some of our largest hubs. So Charlotte and Philadelphia, along with another, 60 cities that we ground handle for. But the flight side with an aircraft that wasn't really sustainable anymore, the Dash 8, it was, timing out. It had just gotten old at this point. And, the public perception of turboprop aircraft is not always great. And pilots also looked at that. It was hard to recruit. It was hard to get people on board. And then once we started getting the 145, that really helped us out with our recruiting aspect. It was a learning curve for all of us, but we all worked together to get it done. And now we are the number one carrier, regional carrier for performance with American Airlines in the American Airlines portfolio. We do really well across the board with zero cancellations. And gosh, I think we hold the record for it. So it's a feat, and it takes an army to do it. People don't realize how many people it takes to get an aircraft off the ground, from recruiting all the way up to dispatch and crew scheduling. There's a million people in between that are trying to get these things off the ground, but we do it and we do it well. And honestly, I don't think I've ever seen it done any better than Piedmont.
Man, that's awesome. I love the 145. It was my first high performance jet. It was very fun and definitely talk about learning curves, man. That thing, once you figured out the FMS and you remembered you don't have auto throttles, like you kind of get the hang of it. You spend a lot of your time bouncing around to different schools and looking for and doing recruiting and getting people interested in Piedmont. What are the things that people are talking to you about that you find yourself constantly laying out when you go talk to these men and women?
Oh yeah. Just depending on who I'm talking to, but with students, it's more along the lines of quality of life. So they ask a lot of questions about the culture. That's one big piece of it, and what our DE&I guess programs are like. They also want to know, of course, days off, vacation, reserve time, long call reserve, and then also upgrade to captain, which we all know upgrade to captain is relatively quick once you hit your 1,000 hours. So, and the one thing that's kind of nice about it, our union and us have come to an agreement to where our captain or our first officers actually get paid as captains at 750 hours, and then they're eligible for long call reserve as well.
What are the rules for long call reserve? Do you know?
It is, I believe it's 12 hours. I'd have to go back and look at the exacts, but that's the nice thing about it is there's a certain percentage of our pilot population that is actually able to be on long call reserve. And I believe it's a 12-hour call out, and they are able to be on it as soon as they're upgraded.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it's definitely a balance because if you are living outside of your base and you're commuting in, then a 12-hour call out is really nice because it allows you to kind of form your day and your plan with your family a little bit better. And so if you are senior enough to hold that, it is definitely an awesome benefit.
For sure. And I'm going to have to go back and look on that 12-hour, 24-hour call out. I can't remember the timing on it, but it's up there.
Yeah, I remember when, right as I was leaving Envoy, I was on the union there, and we were just getting into the agreements about what long call was going to look like and how to manage that. And we did not have even the option to do. I think it was a 4-hour call out for regular reserve beforehand. So
yeah,
12 is way
a little
better.
bit rough.
Yeah. Speaking of commuting, what are the talk to me about the bases? What's senior? What's junior?
It's kind of up in the air right now. Our bases we have Philadelphia, which is what we've always pretty much called our junior base. And then we have Charlotte, which is actually it got much larger during COVID. And it really hasn't backed down. Charlotte has really grown exponentially with their flying. It's an American-focused city, obviously, with their being the second largest hub. And then we have a small satellite base, which is Middletown or Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. That is actually it was a way for us to really put efficiency in our lines. So it gave us the opportunity to open up a smaller base. It was very senior. Not a whole lot of people wanted to really go there, but we had a large pilot population that was senior in our group. Back in the day, we had outstation domiciling, and that was one of them. So we had a pretty large pilot population in Middletown. So we opened that back up just for efficiency. And then it gave the opportunity for folks to, try something else, especially with a lot of our pilots living in the Pennsylvania area. They didn't want to commute into Philly just because of the traffic or whatever else. And, with Middletown being relatively close to some major metropolitan areas, it helped out some.
Yeah, that's cool. I remember, going to the E-gates in Charlotte. If you are a regional pilot and you are going to the E-gates, if you're a first officer, you better be quick on your radios because there's like 5 ramp frequencies.
Yeah.
It's kind of a Wild West experience trying to get in and get out of there. So, and if you're a captain, make sure you start just one engine because you don't know how long you're going to be burning before you can get out of the conga line there.
Yeah, we hear that a lot. And we actually picked up a lot of flying in and out of Chicago. Haven't opened a domicile there yet, but it's on my radar, of course. But yeah, we get a lot of stories about taxiing in and out of Chicago too. So I don't think it's anything new for our pilots.
Yeah, Chicago keep you fast on the way in. And then once you're on the ground, just don't stop. Just keep going.
Exactly. Just keep going.
You get yelled at with a Chicago accent. It's not fun to hear. Ask me how I know.
I'm sure you do.
All right. So one of the big hallmarks of an American airline wholly owned is the flow. Will you talk to me about what that is and for somebody that might be unfamiliar?
Yeah. Flow is relatively a simple concept. It's based on seniority. And what happens is once you upgrade, we send you to American with no interview, no questions asked. Over to American Airlines. So the nice thing about it is you only have one interview for the rest of your career if you want it that way. A lot of people talk about the flow as in, it's, you're never going to flow or you're never going to get over there. I call it a safety net. Great if you want to go to American or outside of the flow, if you want to go to another carrier, obviously you're more than welcome to. The nice thing is the industry is cyclical. And so having that backup plan or that in your back pocket being able to flow is excellent. I wish I had that safety net. And another nice thing is if you are called up for flow and let's say that American's not holding a class or they've reduced their hiring numbers, we at year 5 you go to top of scale as a captain. So if you hit 5 years and you haven't flown to American, taken the flow to American, you are at top of scale on your paycheck. So that really does help out a lot. And we do have people that end up not flowing. They stay at Piedmont for their career. They like their schedule. They like what we do. And they end up not going. So they're getting paid top of scale at 5 years. And we love to keep you. So no problems there. But and obviously we were talking a little bit about people going around the flow. it's nothing new to us. That's been happening since the inception. So if you can get on with a major carrier, we're happy for you. We really want you to succeed in your career. But the flow is there for your backup plan, or if you want to rely on it, that's fine too. It gives you great experience for 5 years, and then you head on up to American.
Do you know right now, like the guys that flowed like this past month, when they were hired?
Oh gosh, you got me on that one. Honestly, I have no idea. COVID really put a damper on all of that. So following all those people through the system itself, the last time I checked, it was sitting about 6 years. But that continues to reduce as we hire. So for I think it's every 100 pilots, we flow another one. So it's based on numbers, and it really is all dependent on also if American's holding a class. So if they don't hold a class in, say, December, that they get kicked down the road to the January class. So it does happen, but it's really in the grand scheme of things, it's not very long.
Yeah, as it was tricky during. I was at Envoy during the COVID life, and yeah, it was tough because everybody, everything came to a grinding halt. So there's no new classes. They're not hiring. They're trying not to furlough, and Envoy furloughed quite a few pilots. Did you guys furlough during COVID?
We did not. We got our union and our chief pilot's office worked out some deals where some of them went to half lines, some of them took leave of absences, just to really reduce our costs. But we were really adamant about keeping the employees or the team members we had on the payroll. So we did really, really well during COVID. Surprisingly, we actually picked up flying and actually held new hire classes during COVID, which was unheard of. But we relied heavily on our cadet program, which was our saving grace. A lot of carriers were not prepared to hire during COVID. They had let people go. They weren't ready to pick up flying. And we kind of came out of the backside and said, hey, we can take your flying for you. And it worked out really well. So that's one of the great things about Piedmont is we're always trying to be innovative. We're always trying to protect our employees. And that's one of the biggest reasons I stick around. And a lot of the reasons people love to come here is for that. We protect our employees and we try to keep their jobs as stable as possible.
Yeah, I know I saw that the pay rates they're not contractual. They're all a letter of agreement, right? The current pay rates. And I think that the pay rates expire sometime August, September timeframe. Do you guys any inkling if we're going to continue getting these pay rates? Are they talking in conversations like rolling things into the contract?
They were actually extended another 5 years, so they're not going anywhere.
What's
so? Yeah, it gives, you have to have the flexibility in the airline industry. At the end of the day, we're here to make money, and we provide jobs. So we have to have the flexibility to move things around. However, we know that the industry itself is commanding those types of, salaries. So we've kept it around and it was extended. So we are, we're rolling down the pipe with that. We weren't hiring FOs for about a year, just very, very few on the minimum side because we were so imbalanced with captains. So it really wasn't taken hard advantage of. So now, that's rolled back up into another 5 years of extension. So I'm not really concerned about the extended pay, but it is there. And we do know that, people do ask about that is, well, why isn't it contractual? Well, we have to have the flexibility, and we have to be able to take care of everybody, not just the pilots.
Yeah. Listen, the machinations between unions and the company are it's never happy. Nobody's ever happy.
No.
Just seems like. All right. So let's talk about. I've got so many points you've brought up that I want to go about. When you said, hey, we're not hiring for a year, and then because you have this big vacuum that happened about 24 months ago, where all of a sudden everybody turned the faucet on, demand it just skyrocketed. The majors started snapping people up as fast as they could. The ULCCs were all hiring. Everybody was looking for new pilots. And, there was fertile ground inside the regionals. And so every regional, anybody that had somebody with their ATP men's and probably approaching about 500 to 1,000 hours of multi-engine just got snapped up. And then all of a sudden you guys, you can't fly jets because you don't have, you have to have a captain and a first officer. And then there's this big backup and everybody's trying to hire the same new hire captain, when ExpressJet closed and all that. That was really helpful, and a couple others. But what do you guys see right now is where the demand is for each? Because when I go on the website, I see you have direct entry captains, and then high time first officers, and then first officers, and then the cadet program. So talk me through what the demand signal looks like and how you guys are managing all that.
Yeah. So direct entry captains and high time first officers are still a big priority for us. The more captains we have, the more people we can upgrade at a later time, the more we can grow. And we are in a growth mode right now. I'm sure you saw the announcement yesterday with, American's big order during Investors Day. So there's 90 new 175s coming to American. Which is a great thing. They haven't given us the full details of the expected delivery dates, but we do know, American's very aware that the 145s are just they're coming to their end of the life. And what we say is, the little jets make the big jets go, and we need the capacity. So the first 12, I believe, are going to Envoy just to put them over, whatever they needed them for, whether it's retirements or adding to their fleet. And then a lot of them will come to Piedmont. We just are waiting for more details. Obviously, we've gone through this transition before to a new aircraft type. We know that it takes time. So those are the things that we're trying to hammer out at this point. But we do know that those are coming to us, which is, something great for us. We get that question all the time is, when are you guys getting new aircraft, or when are you getting dual class, or when are you getting Wi-Fi, things like that, which are important to not only the customers, but to the employees as well. But the nice thing about it is now we have a fleet plan. They know they're coming. So those are coming down, and they're saying that they want the 145s retired by the end of the decade. We do know that things change in the airline industry a lot. That's very cyclical. So, there's always the chance that we'll stick around with those a little bit longer. We are in a niche market for them. They work very well for us. But as for your previous question, the high time FOs and the direct entry captains are going to be the priority. If you come in with upgradable time, those are it's like gold right now for everybody. So the quicker we can get you into the left seat, the quicker we can, the more we can grow. The FO side, we try to meter it. We're running about 30 to 40 per month in our class sizes. So we run about two classes a month, just depending. If kind of two classes a month, sometimes it ends up as three. But at the same point, we have a good mix. So what we're trying to do is try to balance all of this out. So as we're not becoming imbalanced, because we were like this, right? And now we're coming back to that even playing field. But a lot of our first officers, what we're finding is they're coming from our cadet program. They get first priority. So if you're looking at being an FO and not in a cadet program, you're not as competitive as our own that have already come into the program and have really enjoyed, the benefits of that cadet program. So we roll them in, and then we sprinkle in the non-cadets that come in as well, which right now, about let's say a quarter to a half of the class is cadets, and then the rest are FOs, high time FOs, and then DECs. So you'll continue to see the same equation, if you will, throughout the year. But there's no plans to stop FO hiring at this point. We're not overloaded. We are trying to meter the classes as best to our ability. We don't want to get into a situation where we're backlogged, which we've run into in the past where, once we're backlogged, that takes time to clear. And then we end up sending people home and they're getting a paycheck for not doing anything for months. Which to me, I would love to do that. But, a lot of these pilots are really just itching to fly. So we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. We want to get people into the cockpit. We're training them as fast as we can. But we have to meter everybody. But it's actually working really well. My recruiting team is, hands down, I like to brag about them. They're the best in the industry. They know what they're doing, and they do really well at what they do. So just trying to get all those people in the door. And with the DECs, it's a game. It's a game of ones with direct entry captains. So we rely heavily on our referral program, which is a lot of money for people. So if you bring in a DEC, it's a $10,000 payout at this point. So and it goes up and down. So I think we've seen it as high as $25,000. So it just really is fluctuating with the market. So our needs grow. We tend to add money places where we need to, along with our ERJ type rating, that bonus as well. So that all comes into play. But we do pretty well at it. We've grown, we've attrited below our forecast, which has been kind of nice. And we're continuing to see that drop off just because of the way the industry is working right now with the ULCCs and then even the majors reducing their hiring. So it's starting to even out even further, which is great. It gives us sustainable growth. It allows us to upgrade folks that have, otherwise been just stagnant in building time and just moving people through the process. So it's worked well.
Yeah, 2023 was a hot mess for hiring. I'm sure you guys were just dying.
It was
trying
fun
to meet everybody.
Yeah, it was 2023 was a brutal year. We had been given a goal to bring on as many people as possible. But we had our minimums, and we did meet those minimums throughout the year. It's really hard to get the people that you want because there's just so many options out there. So it's not just a one and done deal. When we're recruiting, we probably have to have at least 3 or 4 touch points before we can talk someone into coming into Piedmont. And our chief pilot's office, our flight operations office, they're really good about talking to pilots as well. So I know we're all aware that not every pilot wants to talk to a recruiter. The nice thing about my recruiters, the vast majority of them are pilots. They work full time for me, and then they are also either learning how to be a pilot or have already been pilots. So it works very well. But we also bring in our pilots and our chief pilots to have those conversations as well, just because they want to know how life is on the line. And we want to make sure that they get that information. What we don't want is someone coming to us and not be happy, right? We bring people with, I'm taking an example. I was at the NGPA exhibition, or their big job fair,
the winter warm up.
Yeah, the winter warm up. We were there. It was a lot of fun. But I had someone come up to me where they were West Coast based. They wanted to be on the West Coast, and really the commute from the West Coast to the East Coast is really difficult, and they didn't want to move. It's brutal, right? And if you with a 4-day on, 3-day off schedule, or being on reserve, it can be painful. So I took this guy and I was like, look, I would love to have you, but if this isn't going to work, you're going to be miserable. And then both of us have spent time and money trying to get you into the door, and you're going to end up going out. You're going to end up going through another 121 training program. It's just not going to be good. But let me introduce you to Envoy, or let me introduce you to PSA, where they have a base closer to where you're at. And that's really the way we work, is we want to make sure people are happy. We don't want to bring someone on board just because they're a pilot. We want to make sure they fit with us, and we want to make sure their quality of life is actually great for them as well. And I know that this person was probably going to be miserable trying to balance all this out. So, it takes all of us to really work together to make this work, and we want to make sure everybody's a good fit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. And I have seen, I see people that do the big commutes, and God bless them, managing that is really, really difficult. And I don't know. It's just, I hate commuting so much, guys. I do. Everybody that's ever listened to my show has heard me talk about the difficulties. You're just wasting your money, because you could be in a seat somewhere flying. You could pick up open time, but the further you are away, the less likely you are to go try to make some extra money for your family. So it just can be tricky.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that people don't like. It sounds like a great idea, right? You're sitting there, you're like, oh my gosh, I got a job with the regional, and and it may be across the country, and they may not have a family right away, but at some point they're going to. And if you're going to be at a regional for at least a few years, and I mean, we know that people are getting out relatively earlier than they were. But they've got to think about what's going to happen in the 5-year period. You could get married, you may end up on the West Coast. Things aren't going to be as flexible. So we recommend that people just move out towards us versus staying on the West Coast. Not to say it can't happen or it doesn't happen. People do make it work. But it's not, I'm sure the quality of life isn't as good as it could be.
I highly agree. Absolutely. 1,000%. One of the things I just want to clarify for the pilot that's listening about the aircraft orders, because we had yesterday's announcement by American, I think they said 90 new 175s. And the difference between a 175 and a 145 is a couple things that I want them to know about. The 145 seats 50 people as one flight attendant. It's got 2 pilots up front. And the 175 has been the big difference maker. It's 74 seats. And the reason it's 74 seats, which seems kind of weird, is because there's a scope clause with the majors saying it's basically, without getting into the crazy details, for a major airline, they can fly, they can have they can operate regional, but contractually, there's a limit to the amount of seats and the capacity of the regional aircraft versus the mainline aircraft. And that's the pilot unions at the majors focus to not dilute their value of the pilot at the major. And the reason the regionals look at the 175 as like really the big difference maker is because it's way more efficient and the profitability is much, much higher. So the more 175s that you can get and put in, the higher the margin can be for the regional airline, which is a win for them. And so that's, this is the constant balance of like, hey, we already bought these planes, these 145s, we've got them, we're flying them. But at some point there's a cost benefit where, hey, we should buy new planes. And let me tell you, the 175 is so sweet. I mean, it's just such a nice plane.
It is.
It is for sure. So that's why that's a big deal for people that are thinking about, it's not the difference maker is like, where should you go? Because I have to go fly this jet. It's just a matter of like the finances for the airline make it much, much more appetizing to look for a bigger, more efficient aircraft.
For sure.
And there's first class seats. You can charge more for a first class seat.
Yeah, I mean, the first class seats seem to be what is really, really driving the market right now. Premium products are always going to be a big seller. And, with the 175, it's passenger comfort too. You look at just the interior itself, the ability to carry-on bags without having to gate check them, along those lines. And then obviously the whole Wi-Fi situation is always being looked at as well. So, longer stage lengths for pilots is also another piece of it as well. The more hours you fly, the quicker you upgrade, the quicker you go on to the majors. So there's lots of benefits for it. But at the same time, I love the 175. It's, they love to call it the Barbie jet, and it's a good thing to fly. So
yeah, for sure.
Nothing wrong with it for right now.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. It is a fantastic, the 145 is a fantastic jet. And I'm glad I got the chance to fly it for sure. All right, you talked about the cadet program. So, man, want to talk about a spider's web of all sorts of different things. Like there are a lot of things, like the idea of a cadet program, but you have so many different kind of ways into it and so break that down and talk to me about how it's different than some of the other programs that are out there at other airlines.
So we've one of the things that I noticed right when we started adding these cadet programs in at about the 2016 era, 2017, we saw a lot of these programs come out. They were very narrow to be able to get into them. You had to go to a certain school. You had to have so many hours. You had to be a CFI. There were no 61s allowed. It was all 141 flight schools. And it could be difficult, really. It was catering to those that were going to the college sides or the large flight schools. And we knew that there was another market out there for, the Part 61s and these smaller flight schools that didn't really get the attention paid to them they should. And honestly, the whole Fasana piece where we went out and spoke with a lot of the flight schools, especially the smaller flight schools, really opened my eyes to there's other places to get pilots. So we simplified it. I thought, for one thing, I'm a simple guy. So simplifying things and making it easy to understand makes it a lot easier for everybody else, or at least I feel that way. So we started looking at it saying, all right, you don't really need to be a 141 flight school. And a lot of the problems, even with the 141s that we had, the smaller ones, they couldn't meet the minimum insurance requirements that we had to have in our agreements. So that was another piece of it. So we couldn't add flight schools that couldn't meet those insurance requirements. So we looked at it holistically. We took a look at, the pieces of this and how it would work. And we know that, especially on the East Coast, that there are a lot of smaller flight schools that are out there, but just as good as anybody else. And then what we did was we took away that requirement, and we decided, all right, instead of paying the flight school, we're going to pay the student directly. And then they're going to be able to use that money not only towards flight training, but they can also use it towards housing. They can use it towards whatever they need to really start, down the road. We introduced an ambassador program about 4 years ago. And what the ambassador program is there's no requirement to join. It is really just a way to get your foot in the door to Piedmont and start understanding the airline industry, because we do see people come into the airlines and they have no idea what they're getting into. The acronyms, the different ways they work, what kind of jets they're flying, what a domicile is. There's so many different pieces and facets to the airline industry. The ambassador program really gives them a leg up to start understanding it. And then once they hit either their CFI at 250 hours or their commercial multi at 500 hours, you can join the cadet program. And the cadet program, what it does is it gives you an interview. You get accepted into the program. We begin paying you, which is right now is about $15,000. It's $10,000 at signing, and then $5,000 over the course of your time building. And then you're guaranteed a job at Piedmont, which then in turn guarantees you a job at American. So it really simplified everything. And it also gives you the insight to our carrier, our culture. It gives you access to our pilots. It gives you access to our training department. And then you get to meet everybody. So you already know from day one, even before you step foot in a 145, you already know what we're about and you know what you're getting into. So it really kind of helped us out, and it simplified a lot of things just across the industry. One of the biggest pieces, it always comes down to money, right? We're one of the few, the three wholly owns, we all pay. We give you money towards your flight training. I don't think there's really anybody else out there that does that anymore. And it really is kind of nice. And what we're also giving is we give our cadets flight benefits. So they actually get to fly as a, kind of an employee. They can fly anywhere on the American network, and it gives them an opportunity to travel as well. So we just ask they don't get stuck places.
Yeah, for sure. Don't get stuck in during an uprising or something like that.
Exactly.
So tell me, okay, so clarify again, the money that they can get is $15,000. Great.
Right now it's 15. Yep.
It's 15. And so you can use that towards your flight toward your flight training. Talk to me about what a cadet interview looks like, man.
It is really, what we don't do is, people want to come in and think we're going to test them as an FO, or it's going to be an FO interview.
Okay.
It isn't. It's broken down to where they're at in their program. So if you think about your CFI check ride or your commercial or multi check ride, we base our questions off of those pieces. A lot of METAR work, a lot of approach work. And that's one of the things that what we see is, a lot of the flight schools are training NOS or government charts. We use JEP. So that we start introducing that stuff to them during their cadet process. But we also know that they are probably not going to know the JEP charts just because of the money involved with obtaining them. And most flight schools are using the government approach place. And we talk a lot about culture. We talk a lot about threat and error management. We talk about what you've done outside of the aviation training realm, such as, what do you do for fun? What do you do for volunteer work? And then the typical HR questions where, we use the STAR method, which is the situation, however that works. I can't even remember.
Situation, task, action, result.
Thank you. That's it. It's been a while since I've done an interview.
That's my life, man.
I know. And so we just focus mainly on that piece of it. And we're really just trying to get to know you. And if you're going to fit in our culture, if you're going to be able to be successful in the endeavors that we're going to put you through, and if you're going to make it through flight school. A lot of people will come to us, we'll start getting into it, and they'll say, okay, this might not be for me. And that's what we're hoping for, is we're hoping to give you the insight to, okay, don't get into this $100,000, $150,000 venture and, not be able to complete it. So that ambassador program and that cadet program gives you that insight. So, that really does help us out a lot.
If I'm coming in to interview as a cadet, should I wear a suit?
Absolutely.
Hell yes.
Yeah. And we want you to still get that. We want you to get that feeling that you're at an airline interview. We want you to be the professional piece of it. And a lot of people ask why we don't do interviews at Sun and Fun or Oshkosh, or why aren't you doing these at, any of the job fairs that we're at?
Yeah.
Because what part of this is about the experience, right? We want you to understand how this all works. Even though you're not going to the normal ways of doing it, we're teaching you that if you're going to another carrier at some point, you're going to have to interview unless you're flowing to American. So we want you to get that piece, right? We want you to understand that this is the way it's done, regardless of how you're entering the airlines. And it gives them the ability to really hone on their skills. So wearing that suit, being professional, understanding your interview process and what you've done to better yourself throughout your career and throughout your high school or college career is something that we look at, and we look at heavily. So not only is this an opportunity for you to have a job, but it's also it's also an opportunity for you to learn what the real world is like.
Yeah, and one of the things I've seen recently with the Spitfire Elite interview consulting portion of us is that there's been a bigger desire from people looking to go into cadet programs and people looking to really sharpen their game. And I mean, you got to think, if you're a traditional student in a cadet program, you're probably in your early 20s, or you're a second career person that's gone through, that's kind of that middle age. Maybe you've seen a couple interviews here or there. An airline interview is totally different than any other interview. It takes way longer. It's much more in depth. And I mean, you hit on, hey, Jeppesen charts. Heads up, if y'all are interested in Jeppesen charts, there's some great conversations on YouTube where you can learn about them a little bit and kind of get a introductory course in it. But also, you can threat and air management, man. I just did a solo episode on the importance of threat and air management, how it works, and CRM and crew resource management, and those pieces, like, that's an integral part as my life as a captain and somebody else's life as a first officer, like that being able to meld together, and even being from different cultures, backgrounds, whatever it is, you have to be able to operate safely and effectively and efficiently and lead and follow, right? And show that. And you have to display that in an interview. Gosh. So you fly them out and you interview them in person?
We do. During COVID, we tried to really get. We ended up having to do interviews virtually, right? That was something that we really tried to engage on, and sometimes it does happen. But our goal is we fly everybody out to Charlotte. They go through a day at the training center. They get to meet some of our pilots and our training staff, and then they go through their interview process. And then we do send them home. It just depends on kind of where they're at in the world. But we either bring them in the night before, or we let them overnight the night after, or both, just depending on the flight schedules. But we want them to have that experience. We want them to see what we're about and what we have to offer.
Talk to me about what helps a cadet bubble up to the top of the list to get that CJO.
So we do see a lot of people that come in and they're very shy. And understandably, we look at the ability to have a conversation. We have we want them to be able to talk to us, because if they can talk to us, they're going to be able to talk to other people, especially in the cockpit and ATC and anybody else that's involved with this whole thing. So the communication piece is huge. On top of that, we're just looking for professionalism, what you've done outside of your flight training career. Do you have a job? Are you doing other things? Like with me, I was in the airline industry during college, right? So I had that leg up. Are you volunteering? Are you part of an affinity group? So are you part of FASANA? Are you part of the UAA? Are you part of NGPA or OBAP or any one of those? We look at those things just because we want to see that not only are you devoted to your craft, but you're devoted to the holistic piece of aviation, which there is probably an organization that matches with you at some level. So we want to make sure that you're not only focused on your flying, but you're a well-rounded individual and you're able to communicate that. And that's really the big piece of an interview, is being able to talk. If you're quiet and, the recruiter has to continue to lead the conversation, it begins to make us wonder, are you going to be able to have that conversation with other people? Are you going to be able to work in a crew environment? Are you going to be able to communicate effectively with your flight attendants and with the ground personnel and with either your captain or your FO, depending on where you're sitting? So we're looking at all of those pieces to find a whole package. And those are the things that people really need to understand. And we're looking at those soft skills. Those soft skills are important. Being able to speak publicly is important, and being able to articulate what you're getting into and what you've done is important. And it gives you an opportunity to brag about yourself. Everybody loves to talk about themselves. Use that to your advantage.
Absolutely. Imagine what this show would be like if we were both introverts and we were both, well, not just introverts, but shy and unable to carry the conversation. And yes, we Tyler and I are both kind of cut from the same cloth as like our personality goes. So it's a win-win for us in the conversation, but it's tricky. And you think once you're in the front and you close that door, it's just kind of you unto yourself, but really be that the reason it's important is because one day you're going to have a maintenance issue. One day you're going to be payload optimized in an Embraer 145, and you're going to have to do some math to figure out what bags we can take, if we can take extra passengers, and you're going to have to come up with this like algorithmic answer to a hard thing. And you're going to have to tell people things that are easy to talk about, things that are hard to talk about. You're going to have weather cancellations, and you're going to have to stand there in front of those passengers and let them know that, and be empathetic and be be that person your mom wants you to be, right? And so that's important. And I want to encourage the pilot that's listening, the cadet that's going to make this happen, to invest in yourself, right? To make sure that you are ready to talk, because if you can't, then this opportunity will go and it's gone. And that
it is.
And that's not what we want, right? Because you're probably an awesome pilot. And so that communication thing, I got a call the other day from a guy from Poland who is a second career person who's going through the process and is concerned about being able to communicate clearly and articulate himself well with an accent. And, my recommendation for him was to make yourself uncomfortable and get out there and get your work on clarity of conversation, because that it's a funny tricky thing when you're on radios and stuff like that. So if you can constantly be making yourself better, you become a more well-rounded individual. So do that. My dad's an immigrant, man. I grew up with an accent, and that's how it goes. And you just make yourself it shouldn't be a barrier. It's an opportunity. That's what
it is. Absolutely. And, the more you better yourself, the more you take on those hard pieces, and having those hard conversations or putting yourself out there, we recognize that. And it's, I love watching people succeed, and those that are practicing, those that are actually doing something other than burning holes in the sky. Those are the well-rounded people we're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned joining some of the groups, and I would say absolutely. And you don't have to be black to be a member of OBAP. You don't have to be gay to be a member of NGPA. You don't have to be Asian to be a member of PAPA. Or a woman to be in WAI, or all of them, LPA. Every time I have the whole list, everybody that listens, I'm like, gosh, I got to make sure I talk to everybody because I love them so much. But do be a part of that. Do help other pilots. Do lift them up and celebrate their victories. So however you can help and put yourself out there, do that. It's worthwhile. It's so many good friends. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. And on the reverse side of that, if you're a pilot out there looking and you're already part of these organizations, or you don't know about these organizations, start looking at the airlines that are supporting these. There are a lot of them out there that, they fly by the night, or they don't support the organizations. And that makes me question a lot of things. So when I'm out there and I'm looking at the organizations to either sponsor or to attend, I'm trying to give everybody the equal opportunity to do those things, because we know that, one thing may not be important to one pilot, but it may be important to another. So supporting the organizations equally, or at least as equally as I possibly can, is something to look at. And it's something to really, as looking at the generations that are coming to us, such as, you've got the millennials, and you've got Gen Z, and now you've got Gen Alpha.
Gen Alpha? What the heck is Gen Alpha?
Yeah,
who's that?
That's the new one.
Oh,
that's
man.
I know. I'm starting. I just turned 40, and I'm starting to get old, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm becoming obsolete. And everybody was talking about millennials yesterday. So, yeah,
you got good hair. You still got good hair.
I'm trying. It's starting to gray on the sides, but
man.
It is what it is. That's what the airline industry does to you. But the airlines that are out there supporting these, walking the walk, talking the talk, keep your eyes on them. Those are the people you want to be with.
Yeah, and what I do like about that statement is that, and also first off, I looked at your schedule of events of where your recruiters are. Holy moly, man! like there's 15 just in March, and 8. Oh God, so much. But you get a broader brushstroke of your customer base when you look around, and you support organizations that look like the rest of America and are it's that melting pot idea, right? And so you get great perspective, and you get great opportunities and new ideas that come forth with that. So that's super cool. You guys are on the road a lot, man. What's up? Talk to me.
So my team, like I said before, it's a game of ones. So when you'll see us at big events, you'll see us at these little tiny events, and then you're going to see us at events that really have nothing to do with recruiting. It's more along the lines of PR and giving people support, right? So sometimes you'll see us at, we'll be at the museum, and we'll just be there to chat with people, or even just help out. We volunteer a lot. But then you'll see that our direct entry captains, we had a huge event. Well, I say huge. It was actually an invite only event, but we took a bunch of people to the Daytona 500. It was an event to attract direct entry captains to really get their questions answered. We had our chief pilots there. We brought people down from just headquarters, and we really just had a good time. And we're able to have these one-on-one conversations that you're really not able to have at these large events. So we try to play it out, right? And then we try to separate it all. So we may do these little events over in Memphis, Tennessee, but then we'll do a massive event down at Embry-Riddle, or vice versa. It just depends. You'll see us, at these conferences that are, have nothing to do with, recruiting pilots, but more along the lines of educating people about the industry itself. We get asked all the time, hey, can you come and talk to my class about being a pilot? Or can you come and talk to my class about, weather, or whatever else that you can possibly think of? And what's really interesting now is since I have the 4 departments underneath the talent acquisition umbrella, we actually are able to bring multiple facets of the airline industry into these career fairs and to these different organizations, because we can talk about A&P mechanics, we can talk about ground handling, we can talk about corporate. I mean, how many people grow up and say, I want to be a recruiter? I didn't, but somehow I ended up in it.
You're 40. I'll talk to you when you're 50 and you're the CEO of Piedmont. So, I mean, but that's how it is. Yeah. If you want to be in the aviation industry, when you look at the leaders of the industry, they didn't start Robert Isom didn't start as a CEO, right? He did not start there. He had a big career where he went to college and then just started working in aviation finance and bounced around. Now he's CEO of American, and that's what happens. So if that's your thing, if you want to go and be aggressive and be ruthless and be out there and make your stock prices go, let's go. It's your time. I've recently started getting invitations to go speak, and gosh, it's the most fun. It is absolutely the best, because the people that the pilots and the people that are just eager to hear and eager to listen and want to see and want to know, how do I get to where you are? And that is being able to facilitate that and offer that, I think, is a great thing, and it's really rewarding for those captains that those pilots that you are bringing there. It is so rewarding for them. So thank you for bringing them there. If I'm there and I meet one of your pilots, how do I connect with to show interest in all that? Do I say, hey, look, you got a business card, you can slide me and I'll send you an email? Would it be okay for us to link up? Do I just apply online? What do you think the right way to go down the road is?
So we have a few different options. I mean, if you see us out on the road, we're all carrying business cards, or we all, carry our digital cards where you can just tap and, you can get our contact information. All of us have an open door policy. And we get inquiries all the time. So be patient. There's only, a certain amount of recruiters and me and our managers. And then there's millions of you. So we got to be careful there. But we do have a public email address, which is flypiedmont@aa.com. Those are generalized questions, and those are answered by recruiters on a daily basis. We're all monitoring that inbox. So we also have that ability. And then just reach out. I mean, all of us have our LinkedIns. We all have, all of our social media that you can reach out to. And if you just look online, if you start Googling my name, I'm pretty sure you can find my email address. So just remember, my name is Tyler Tenbrink. There's some other people that are out there that when you Google me, it's not fun, but definitely take a look at my LinkedIn. That's an easy way to get me. But flypiedmont@aa.com is really the easiest piece to go to, because we'll get the right person to you.
Good, and I think that's important, because the follow through from your team is as important as just getting in front of them. Switching gears a little bit, talk to me about what an FO interview looks like. How is it different than a cadet interview?
It goes into a little bit further, right? So a lot of our people are coming in as either they're FOs at a 135, or they were running pipeline, or they were being a CFI. So one of the biggest things I'm going to ask you about is I'm going to look at your resume and I'm going to start asking you questions based on what you've done in the past. So if this is your first job, I'm not going to ask you about line flying. I'm not going to ask you about, the crew relationship. I'm going to ask you about your communication skills outside of that, or how your single pilot operation was different from what you think is different from a dual crew or a crew operation, right? Who you communicated with, how you dealt with maintenance delays, things like that. We really try to tailor we try to tailor it to the person, but we also have the standard questions, right? We're going to ask you about this approach. We're going to ask you about these weird one-off things in weather, such as in-cloud lightning, cloud to cloud, ground to cloud, all those things. We're going to try to catch you on these. So, those little things that you always got tested on, like that minuscule symbol on the en route chart. What is that? We may ask you about it. So it could be those things, but we're going to walk you through it, right? As an FO, we know you're not going to know everything, but what we're also asking, what we're looking at is your ability to ask a question and see if there's anything that you can glean from us that may give you the answer, right? So if you don't know, making something up is probably not the best way to go about it. Saying, I don't know, but I can find out is a much better way of answering that question, right? And, there's always the symbol, that I want to call it the table of contents, but, there's the diagram and the legend. Thank you. It's the legend. There's always ways to find something out. And, we all have cell phones. We all have, various ways of finding things out. And at the end of the day, even if you're not successful with an airline or with an interview with me, what that has just given you is the opportunity to improve later, right? You are going to have interviews from probably every regional carrier out there. Take advantage of those. Even if it's not the number one choice that you want to go to, it gives you the experience to understand what we're all looking for. And we're all different when it comes down to it, but we want to make sure you succeed and take advantage of those opportunities. So those are some of the keys there is, you may think it is a failure if you don't pass the interview. It's an opportunity because not only are you probably going to re-interview with us at some point, you're going to interview with 5 others and you know what you're walking into.
Yeah, absolutely. So is the captain, like direct entry captain conversation more focused on leadership and things like that?
Very much so. We'll talk about crew resource management a lot. We'll talk about threat and error management even more so. We do know that, when you're coming in as a direct entry captain, you've already pretty much been handed everything at some point. So we try to tailor the questions to what you were actually doing. So if you came from a 135 carrier and a multi-crew operation, we're going to ask you about that aircraft, or we're going to ask you about, what your day was like and, give me a story. Tell me a story about a time that you failed, or tell me a story about, what was the hardest thing you learned that day? We want to know, and we want to know that you've learned something from either a mistake or what did you learn that could better you in the future? There's always those technical aspects. We're going to ask you those, and it's very easy to answer those. They're not going to be anything that we're going to throw you a curveball at. We're just trying to try to figure out what kind of person you are and what kind of captain you may be. So be prepared. Be prepared to tell us about your life. Tell us about the time that you had an emergency landing, or what you did wrong and what you did right, and how you can make it better in the future.
So you're not going to put like a picture of ALSIF 2 lights and Mauser lights up and say, all right, what's the difference and what do you need to see? Like, oh my gosh, I remember that
I'm not
stuff.
telling you yes, and I'm not going to tell you no.
Golly. One thing I didn't touch on when we talked about the cadet world was the RTP program. And I do want to give you an opportunity to talk about that and to the rotary transition opportunities that you have for those military aviators coming out that are looking to go to Piedmont. What do you talk to me about how that all ties in?
So we don't really have an RTP anymore. That was part of the cadet program that we kind of drug apart, right? So what we did was we melded everything into the cadet program. And it gives the same opportunity for everybody. It was a little bit easier for us to manage that piece of it than to have all these different programs. So RTP, we partner a lot with Infinity Flight Group up in New Jersey. They have a very large RTP. And what that does is not only does it give them the ability to use their GI Bill, but it also puts them into our cadet program, or if they choose to join, which gives them even more money to use towards housing or to use towards, what they need during that point. So we don't have a specific RTP. And that was one of the things that we looked at. Is it going to come back? It possibly could, just as a separate entity, but the money was the same regardless. So as the cadet program built up, it was one entry. If they, came in as an RTP, it was a little bit different because we had to figure out their hours and, had to do a bunch of calculations to where what we were going to pay for, what we couldn't pay for. It was very, very complicated. And it was a lot of background work, not only for my team, but for the flight schools. So when we simplified it, it made it a lot easier, and we can direct people to the right schools to use their GI Bill. And there are a lot of people out there that will say they have an RTP or they can take GI Bills, and then they end up not being able to. And we all know that causes big, big issues. So when you start talking to an airline about, a military transition program or what they can do for the military people, make sure you're asking the right questions and make sure you're asking, where should I go or what can I do? Because that piece of it, if you get into a program where your GI Bill can't be accepted or the GI Bill is, let's say it's denied for whatever reason and they're not paying for it because the school wasn't certified, that is where it becomes an issue. So make sure you're asking the right questions.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. And Affinity is great. I know a lot of people that have gone through there, and buyer beware when it comes to searching out what school you're going to use. Man.
Yeah, for sure. And ask the questions. Ask the right questions to the right people. And that's where recruiters come in, and they're very, very knowledgeable about where you should and shouldn't go.
Yeah, totally. It's absolutely so important. Guys and girls, please pay attention. Tyler, you're awesome. We've been talking for an hour, and I appreciate the value that you've poured into us. And I think that this will be really fruitful. And, I'm just really appreciative. So tell us again where we can find you guys and how we can apply.
No problem. You can find us at Piedmont-Airlines.com. We are on airline apps. That's where all of our applications are taken. So if you go find us out there, I'm quite sure all the pilots listening know what that is. And all of our programs are on there as well. So if you are looking at the cadet program, we do take the applications through airline apps as well. And if you have questions, you can reach out to us at flypiedmont@aa.com, or you can find us on all of the social media channels and reach out that way. Someone will get back to you. And that's about it.
Well, Tyler Tenbrink, thank you. Thank you for spending your day with me. I really appreciate it. I thought this was super valuable. You're the man. Thank you for being on here.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
This is important. Before you go, you need to know that 2024 is going to be unbelievably competitive in the world of pilot hiring, and you need to make sure that you separate yourself from the herd. The only way that you can guarantee that you'll land your dream job is by partnering with Spitfire Elite Interview Consulting. We are the only choice for application review and interview prep. We are the partners that you've been looking for from start to finish, and it's never too early to be part of our community. Just go over to my website, spitfireelite.com, and use the coupon code R4P to save yourself 10% on all of our services. Again, that's the letter R, the number 4, and the letter P to save 10%. So go out there and slay your interviews.